Hi, it's Margaret, and thank you for joining me here on the Gardening Me. It is incredibly windy today. However, normally I would have delayed doing this video specifically, but I am on a rescue mission. Today I am going to be planting a wish list plant, actually, that I've had on my list for quite a long time. And I am going to be replacing a plant that I just put in the ground a few days ago because it is being ravaged, unfortunately. So I have to put it in a much more protected spot. I really hope my camera stays upright here. It is being ravaged by rabbits. Let me show you firstly the plant that I am going to be rescuing today. And here it is. I don't know if you can see that very well. This is a Gaura, or at least it was. This guy was about 2 feet tall with a ton of leaves, and I planted it here just to see how I would like it. And in fact, it never even occurred to me that the rabbits would really appreciate it, because there are lots of other things here like these tulips and stuff that they really haven't been at all this spring. And so when I planted this here, it was more to see, am I going to like it here? Thank goodness I kept an eye on it, because if I had missed even another day, who knows if there would have been anything left. So this guy here is a beautiful Gaura called Bantam Pink. It gets to be about 12 inches tall, and that's the leaves, and about 20 inches wide. And it's what's often known as a see-through plant, where you have that low mound of leaves, but then the flowers themselves kind of float above the foliage. Now, Gaura, generally speaking, prefers full sun and quite dry soil. I mean, it's fine in average soil, but it doesn't like wet soil. And it blooms from midsummer until fall. This one is a beautiful variety. It has reddish tones when it emerges from the ground, and then the foliage also gets a kind of rosy tint when the weather's a little bit cooler. And it has vibrant pink blooms, almost fuchsia-like pink blooms, and it loves the heat. And it's also apparently deer resistant, although obviously not rabbit resistant at all. Before it starts raining, because I've actually felt a few drops now, let me get this guy dug out. And what I'm going to do is dig it out first. I'm going to plant it in a new spot, which is in my raised bed area that is fenced off so the rabbits can't get to it. And then I am going to be putting a completely different plant in the spot that is much more rabbit resistant, and I think it'll look really good here. It's a wish list plant that I've been wanting for a few years now. Now this should be super easy to dig out, considering I put it into the ground a couple of days ago, and it pops right out. Wouldn't it be nice if all plants were like that? So I just put it in a bucket. So let's go over to the other border and get this guy planted. Okay, so this here is where I'm going to plant it. And right now I have a hydrangea here. It's a macrophylla. This one is called amethyst. And macrophyllas in our area are kind of hit and miss. I sometimes get blooms, I sometimes don't. I have never, I believe, gotten blooms from this particular one in this spot. And it's been a few years anyway. I've certainly given it enough time. So what I'm going to be doing is moving this one to a different spot in the garden, in the backyard. And I am going to be putting the Gaura in its spot instead. I'm not overly worried about damaging any of these stems either, because I think most of them are dead. So not a big deal. Now I do have a drip line here, I just noticed, which probably isn't the best when it comes to Gaura, because as I mentioned, Gaura prefers to be a bit dry. What I do have, and this is what I was planning to do anyhow, regardless, is I do have a bit of soil in a bucket back there, and that is soil that I ordered for my raised beds a few years ago, 2 years ago, something like that. It's just extra soil. And after I filled my raised beds, I noticed that the soil I got, it was a triple mix. It was super sandy, like super sandy, and it would dry out really quickly. So I did use it in my raised beds, but I did have quite a bit left over, and I put that in a spot in the garden on our hill. So I'm kind of like using it when I need extra soil. What I'm going to do is basically put the Gaura a little bit above soil level so that it gets that really good drainage. During the summer, it's not like a huge deal, but really it's during the winter that, for me in my garden anyway, that's when I tend to lose Gaura, if it's in too wet of a spot. So a spot where the snow accumulates, that kind of thing. So if I elevate this area just a little bit and I kind of put the Gaura, an inch or so above the soil level, I'm thinking that that should provide the drainage that it needs. And I am going to do that by adding some of this sandy-ish type soil to this hole as well. So this is kind of the exception to the rule, because normally I do not add anything other than maybe a handful of compost or something like that into the soil. And I will be doing that. I'll be adding a handful of compost to this and a handful of slow release fertilizer. So like that, and just like that, mix that in. And now here is my plant, and let's see. See, I don't think this is high enough. I think it needs to be a tiny bit higher. So I'm just going to add a little bit more soil in there. Like that. I think that's good. I think that is good. So just go like this. And I do have some of the soil from when I dug it up as well. I'm going to add that just to create a nice gentle slope to the soil line, like the regular soil level. Normally I would add mulch, but other than maybe coming back and hiding this drip line, and in fact, I'm going to move it over just a little bit like this, so it's not like right on top of the Gaura. Other than maybe hiding that, I'm just going to leave this open. It will still have adequate water, especially to establish this summer, but any excess water will kind of just drain away, and this area will dry out a little bit quicker than the surrounding area. I'm going to plant the hydrangea in just a little bit. I'm not too concerned about that guy, but I do want to get my wish list plant in the ground. So let's go back to the front. So here is my wish list plant. Isn't it gorgeous? This is a salvia, and it is called Caradonna. It's a nemorosa, salvia nemorosa. Now, of course, it has those beautiful, beautiful blooms. But then look at these stems. Look how gorgeous that is. The deep, deep purple color against the green foliage, it's amazing. I have been meaning for so long to get this one into the garden, and I don't know, just never seemed to come across it. I didn't really search for it per se, but I did see it at a garden center a couple of weeks ago, and I quickly snapped it up. And as I said, I am going to put it in that spot that the Gaura was in, and cross my fingers the rabbits don't get to it. Normally, salvia is pretty much rabbit resistant. They don't like the smell of the leaves, I guess. They are pretty fragrant, and they're also a little bit rough. So, and the stems are pretty, pretty tough as well. So not exactly what I would call good eating. And I'm thinking this one should be just fine. It blooms from late spring to early summer, but it does rebloom all the way into the fall if you keep it deadheaded. It gets to be about 24 inches wide, and the specs on this, though, said that it gets to be 18 inches tall. The plant that I have here, though, is closer to, I would say, 2 feet tall. It's hardy from zones 4 to 8. It does appreciate a full sun spot, and as well, it likes those average to even dry conditions. It's fairly drought tolerant once it's established. And that's it. So let's get this one into the ground. Okay, so I just have to get a slightly larger hole happening here. Let's see how this is. Oh, this is perfect. Okay. So again, a little bit of compost, a little bit of slow release fertilizer, and like that. I am loving how that looks. If this survives the rabbits for the next few weeks, I'll probably have to put in a few more. And that is it. So now I'm just going to go and plant up the hydrangea. I'm probably going to put it beside another macrophylla that I have in the backyard. And it's done a tiny bit better than this one did in the raised bed area. So we'll see. Maybe it's just a better spot. I don't know. But yeah. Anyhow, thank you so much for joining me today. And we will see you next time on hopefully not so windy of a day. Bye.